The slaying of the Tanuki. Near a big river and between two high mountains, a man and his wife lived in a cottage a long, long time ago. A dense forest lay all round the cottage, and there was hardly a path or a tree in the whole wood that was not familiar to the peasant from his boyhood. In one of his wanderings he had made friends with a hare, and many an hour the two passed together, when the man was resting by the roadside eating his dinner. Now this strange friendship was observed by the Tanuki, a wicked, quarrelsome beast who hated the peasant and never tired of doing him an ill turn. Again and again he had crept to the hut, and finding some choice morsel put away for the little hare, had either eaten it, if he thought it nice, or trampled it to pieces so that no one else should get it. And at last the peasant lost patience and made up his mind he would have the Tanuki's blood. Fair. So for many days the man lay hidden, waiting for the Tanuki to come by. And when one morning he marched up the road, thinking of nothing but the dinner he was going to steal, the peasant threw himself upon him and bound his forelegs tightly so that he could not move. Then he dragged his enemy joyfully to the house, feeling that at length he had got the better of the mischievous beast which had done him so many ill turns. "He shall pay for them with his skin," he said to his wife. "We will first kill him, and then cook him." So saying, he hanged the Tanuki head downwards to a beam, and went out to gather wood for a fire. So I'm going to show you the illustration of the Tanuki, which has, to me, just like a really weirdly big head. Like, I don't think its head...
It's a very strange representation of a tanuki, because they don't look like that.
Am I saying it
They are
wrong?
real animals.
It's Tanuki?
Yeah, tanuki.
Tanuki. You were just going to let me go with that? I've
Well,
said it multiple times.
that's usually the that's usually the anglicization of it,
All
though.
right,
So
Buster.
what?
You cannot criticize my German pronunciation and then just let me mispronounce a different name this whole time. You gotta be equally pedantic.
I thought you'd get annoyed.
Equivalent levels of pedantry. Is that the term?
Yeah.
When it's the title of the story.
Listen, man, sorry.
So alright. The Tanuki is
Tanuki.
Tanuki. The Tanuki is head downwards, tied to a beam, and the peasant is out gathering wood. Meanwhile, the old woman was standing at the mortar, pounding the rice that was to serve them for the week with a pestle that made her arms ache with its weight. Suddenly she heard something whining and weeping in the corner, and stopping her work she looked round to see what it was. That was all the rascal wanted, and he put on directly his most humble air, and begged the woman in his softest voice to loosen the bonds which were hurting him sorely. She was filled with pity for him, but did not dare set him free, as she knew that her husband would be very angry. The Tanuki, however, did not despair, and seeing that her heart was softened, began his prayers anew. "He only asked to have his bonds taken from him," he said. "He would give his word not to attempt to escape, and if he was once set free, he could soon pound her rice for her." This is also in quotation marks. So the Tanuki is referring to himself in the third person.
In the third person. Okay, here, can I
So it
throw in an interesting, potentially interesting translation thing?
yes.
In Japanese, I know this is taken from a German story, but presumably the German version was taken from Japanese,
Yeah.
in which scenario this would make sense, because in
Mm.
Japanese it's not really all that uncommon, especially for like characters you want to portray as childish, to refer to themselves in the third person.
Oh.
Basically, instead of, there are lots of versions of the I pronoun in Japanese.
Okay.
Um,
I don't know this. Why would I know this?
I don't know why you would know that.
You know, as someone who also has been studying Japanese for
Right, of
six
course, of
odd
course.
years.
Naturally. No, but there are a lot of words for I, and they all have different connotations. They're masculine words, feminine words, etc.
Okay.
But depending on region and sort of affect, you can just replace the I pronoun with your own name.
Okay. Okay. And so
Yeah,
this
and
is
it's sort of childish and or excessively cutesy, or
ah,
in certain places a regional feminine thing.
okay, interesting. So we don't know what region this is in, but they're
Yeah,
definitely
it's for this character I'd say it's definitely just he's meant to come off as childish.
childish and almost kind of cutesy because he's like, "Oh, look at
Right.
me, I'm
He's
in
like,
a
"Oh,
little."
little old me? I'm only a you wouldn't hurt a little boy on his birthday, would you?"
I'm just, I'm just. You would hurt a little boy on his birthday. You wouldn't do that, homie. Me,
Anyway, that's my tangent.
little old me with the big head tied up in the corner. You wouldn't hurt me. You want to untie me? All right. Then you. I'm. If I use that voice for him, I will.
Don't.
That I
don't,
wouldn't be
don't
able.
do
No.
that.
Then you can have a little rest, he went on, for rice pounding is very tiring work and not at all fit for weak women.
Excuse me?
Don't even worry, because these last words melted the good woman completely. And she
Did they?
unfastened. She did. They did. And she unfastened the bonds that held him. Poor foolish creature. In one moment, the Tanuki had seized her, stripped off all her clothes, and popped her in the mortar. In a few minutes more, she was pounded as fine as the rice. And not content with that, the
No!
Tanuki placed a pot on the hearth and made ready to cook the peasant a dinner from the flesh of his own wife. I meant to preface this story by saying we're going to continue the theme of last week of um, killing and very promptly eating
Oh
people.
my god. 2 cannibalism stories in a row. Jesus.
Wow.
Oh boy. Well,
When
that was a turn.
yeah, when everything was complete, he looked out of the door and saw the old man coming from the forest carrying a large bundle of wood. Quick as lightning, the Tanuki not only put on the woman's clothes, but, as he was a magician, duh, assumed her form as well. Just gonna throw that little detail in there.
Just toss it in.
Also, I happen to be a magician.
Yeah.
Then
Oh
he took
boy.
the wood, kindled the fire, and very soon set a large dinner before the old man, who was very hungry, and had forgotten for the moment all about his enemy.
What?
You know how you forget your mortal enemy is tied up in the
Oh
corner
my
and then you don't
god.
notice, even though it's literally as big as the woman and tied up and has a massive head and is clearly in
It's
the
not
center
as
of the
big as the
room?
woman. That's perspective.
Okay, but it's not the smallest. Look at its feet
No, he's
compared.
like,
Look at its feet compared to the beam of the house.
yeah, no, he's big.
He's a big creature.
Yeah. I mean, actual tanukis are pretty sizable.
What are tanukis? Those are real animals?
Yeah, 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 they don't look like that.
Well, no, duh.
Hang on. I'll send you a picture.
Okay.
They're pretty cute.
Well, then
They're
our
also known as raccoon dogs.
the people oh, the people at home will not be able to see what you're sending me. What if you
No, they won't,
look
but you
up
will.
a picture? Oh my god. You know what I can do though is if you text it to me.
There you go.
Oh no,
I've texted it to
things
you
are going to
now.
pop up on my screen. Actually, I've okay.
Isn't he cute?
Wow, I got a new match on Tinder.
Wow.
Oh my god, it's so much cuter than the picture.
I know, right?
It's really what a raccoon something?
Raccoon dog.
It does look like a raccoon dog. That is the cutest little creature I
I
ever
know.
did see. It looks almost like a panda, like a red panda if
Like a red panda.
a raccoon red panda. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Now that we've established that. Um yes. But when the Tanuki had saw that he had eaten his fill and would be thinking about his prisoner, he hastily took off the clothes behind a door and took his own shape. Then he said to the peasant, You are a nice sort of person to seize animals and to talk of killing them. You are caught in your own net. It is your own wife that you have eaten, and if you want to find her bones, you have only to look under the floor." With these words, he turned and made for the forest.
Oh my god.
If you want to find her bones, you can go on a scavenger hunt. They're under the floor. The old peasant grew cold with horror as he listened, and seemed frozen to the place where he stood. You know what? This really, you know, you should talk to your wife more. That's what I mean. Too late. But
Right.
if you were served dinner and ate that whole dinner without having enough of a conversation with the creature in front of you to know that it's not your wife, clearly, because I don't know if the Tanuki could have effectively impersonated his wife. Like, that relationship needs work.
Yeah.
Okay. The old peasant grew cold with horror as he listened, and seemed frozen to the place where he stood. When he had recovered himself a little, he collected the bones of his dead wife, buried them in the garden, and swore over the grave to be avenged on the Tanuki. After everything was done, he sat himself down in his lonely cottage and wept bitterly. And the bitterest thought of all was that he would never be able to forget that he had eaten his own wife.
No shit.
I love these stories. While he was thus weeping and wailing, his friend the hare passed by, and hearing the noise, pricked up his ears and soon recognized the old man's voice. He wondered what had happened, and put his head in at the door and asked if anything was the matter. No, nothing's the matter. With tears and groans, the peasant told him the whole dreadful story, and the hare, filled with anger and compassion, comforted him as best he could, and promised to help him in his revenge. "The false knave shall not go unpunished," said he.
It's a very serious hair.
Yeah, well, he's about to do some very serious. This hare is intelligent. This hare is the smartest character in this whole story by like a long shot. So the first thing he did was to search the house for materials to make an ointment, which he sprinkled plentifully with pepper and then put in his pocket. Not sure what that is.
He made pepper spray?
I It might become clear later. I'm not sure what that was. Next, he took a hatchet, bade farewell to the old man, and departed to the forest. He bent his steps to the dwelling of the Tanuki and knocked at the door. The Tanuki, who had no cause to suspect the hare, aside from the fact that he's been eating the hare's food for years, probably, really building the resentment there.
Mm-hmm.
The Tanuki was greatly pleased to see him, for he noticed the hatchet at once and began to lay plots how to get hold of it. To do this, he thought he had better offer to accompany the hare, which was exactly what the hare wished and expected, for he knew all of the Tanuki's cunning and understood his little ways. What a cute couple.
Mm-hmm.
So he accepted the rascal's company with joy and made himself very pleasant as they strolled along. When they were wandering in this manner through the forest, the hare carelessly raised his hatchet in passing, and cut down some thick boughs that were hanging over the path. But at length, carelessly raised his hatchet, just chopping down huge boughs just by accident.
Isn't it bows?
I've heard both. You notice I paused at that word because I was honestly
I
like,
did notice.
I don't know if I
But
ever said that word out loud.
right. Now that it's been brought to my attention, I'm not sure either.
I want to say you can say either because I've definitely
That would
heard
make
like the
sense.
bough of a tree, but
Right.
tree boughs
Rhymes
also.
with though, so that would make sense.
I don't know. I don't know. Bough now sounds
Or it's buff, like tough.
the buff of the tree.
The buff of the
Yes,
tree.
that's it. That's definitely the one. At length, after cutting down a good big tree, which cost him many hard blows, he declared that it was too heavy for him to carry home, and that he must just leave it where it was. This delighted the greedy Tanuki, who said that they would be no weight for him, so they collected the large branches, which the hare bound tightly on his back. Then he trotted gaily to the house, the hare following after with his lighter bundle. By this time the hare had decided what he would do, and as soon as they arrived, he quickly set on fire the wood on the back of the Tanuki. And I've been waiting for this is the illustration of that. Which, honestly, the Tanuki looks really
Holy.
cute in this picture. Like, he looked weird in the other one, but he's kind of cute.
I don't know about that.
I mean, he's still really creepy,
He's pretty horrifying.
but in kind of a cute way. You don't have to agree with me. Anyway, so he's lit on fire.
The bunny's pretty cute.
The bunny's pretty cute, but also intelligent.
Clearly.
So he's just set on fire. The Tanuki, who was busy with something else, observed nothing and only called out to ask
Well,
what was the meaning of the crackling that he heard. "It is just the rattle of the stones which are rolling down the side of the mountain," the hare said, and the Tanuki was content, and made no further remarks, never noticing that the noise really sprang from the burning boughs on his back, until his fur was in flames, and it was almost too late to put it out. Shrieking with pain, he let fall the burning wood from his back, and stamped and howled with agony. But the hare comforted him, and told him that he always carried with him an excellent plaster in case of need, which would bring him instant relief. And taking out his ointment, he spread it on a leaf of bamboo and laid it on the wound. No sooner did it touch him than the Tanuki leapt, yelling, into the air, and the hare laughed, and ran to tell his friend the peasant what a trick he had played on their enemy.
ouch.
So, like, all this hare did
Holy shit.
is burn the shit out of the Tanuki's
Just, like,
back
tortured
and
this
shove
guy.
pepper into it.
Ow.
So he just ran to tell the peasant what he did.
I almost feel bad for the Tanuki, except I don't because
He killed and
I
ate
don't.
No!
I don't actually. But never mind, go on.
But the old man shook his head sadly, for he knew that the villain was only crushed for the moment, and that he would shortly be revenging himself upon them. No, the only way ever to get any peace and quiet was to render the Tanuki harmless forever. Long did the old man and the hare puzzle together how this was to be done, and at last they decided that they would make 2 boats, a small one of wood and a large one of clay. Then they fell to work at once, and when the boats were ready and properly painted, the hare went to the Tanuki, who was still very ill, and invited him to a great fish catching. The Tanuki was still feeling angry with the hare about the trick he had played on him, but he
No
was,
shit.
just a little pissed. But he was weak and very hungry, so he gladly accepted the proposal, and accompanied the hare to the bank of the river, where the 2 boats were moored, rocked by the waves. They both looked exactly alike, and the Tanuki only saw that one was bigger than the other, and would hold more fish. So he sprang into the large one, while the hare climbed into the one which was made of wood. They loosened their moorings and made for the middle of the stream, and when they were at some distance from the bank, the hare took his oar and struck such a heavy blow at the other boat that it broke in 2. The Tanuki fell straight into the water, and was held there by the hare until he was quite dead. Then he put the body in his boat and rowed to land, and told the old man that his enemy was dead at last. And the old man rejoiced that his wife was avenged, and he took the hare into his house, and they lived together all their days in peace and quietness upon the mountain.
Oh my god.